Discovered that my wife was hooking up with her male best friend the entire time we were dating because it helped her figure me out. I'm Eli, 38, and right now I'm on a camping and hiking trip with my wife Liv, who's 36, and 3 other married couples, Dom and Kate, Sean and Sarah, Bill and Miranda. We also have Liv's longtime friend Ian, who's also 38, and his boyfriend Odie, whose real name is Orlando, and no, he wasn't named after the dog from Garfield. We're all in our mid-30s to early 40s, and we've been friends for a long time. We're all big fans of the outdoors and have been planning this hiking trip for a while. The plan was to hike during the day and camp at night. Everything was going smoothly until the evening of our 3rd day. We set up camp, and Liv and I decided to explore a bit around our campsite. We found this small waterfall, maybe 5 feet high, trickling into a rocky stream that we'd been following along our trail. It was secluded, quiet, and honestly, pretty picturesque. Liv said she wanted to rinse off in the stream and under the waterfall, but didn't want to get her clothes soaked. I told her to go for it. We weren't too far from the others, but the spot was hidden enough for a quick dip. She slipped out of her clothes, stepped under the water, and after a moment, started drying off with the small hand towel we had. As she was finishing up and slipping her shorts and underwear back on in one move, Ian walked up from around the trees. Liv was still completely topless. What struck me was that neither of them reacted, at all. She just casually kept getting dressed, and Ian strolled over like he'd seen her like this a million times before. He started talking to us, telling us something that Dom wanted us to know, but honestly, I was so thrown off, I don't even remember what it was. They chatted a bit, just idle small talk, and then we all made our way back to camp together like nothing had happened. Now it's day 5, and the trail has led us into a small town where we've planned to stay the night at a little inn that caters to hikers. We figured a night of comfort would be good for everyone. Rest, restock supplies, and just recharge. But for the last 2 days, I haven't been able to get the waterfall scene out of my head. I've tried to play it cool, but my wife picked up on my mood and asked me why I was so quiet yesterday. I just told her I was tired, but the truth is, I can't stop thinking about how natural it all seemed between her and Ian. I wouldn't be this suspicious if I didn't already know Ian was bi, not strictly gay. I've known Ian for about 8 years, and over time we've become friends too. But the truth is, all us husbands, and even Odie, are sort of the outsiders here. The 4 wives and Ian go way back to college. I've asked Liv before if she ever dated Ian, and she's always said no. I've also asked if any of the other women in the group had been involved with him, and she'd always denied that too. Maybe I'm just being paranoid, but the way they interacted when she was still topless felt too familiar. Liv is usually pretty modest about her body, so for her not to react at all when Ian showed up, felt off. I have no concrete reason to believe something's happening now, but I can't help but wonder if their past is more than just friends. Am I just being paranoid? Is this a red flag, or am I reading too much into it? I'm really trying not to jump to conclusions, but I can't shake the feeling. It's early on the morning of day 6, and I decided to talk to Liv about what happened by the waterfall. I wanted to get it out while we still had some privacy before hitting the trail again, and I'm glad I did. I tried to approach it calmly, just saying that it felt strange how unbothered she was when Ian walked up while she was topless. I wasn't expecting anything major, but her reaction was immediate and defensive. She shot back, "Is that why you've been moody?" "It's not a big deal. Everyone's seen boobs before, even Ian. You need to grow up." That response set off all sorts of alarms for me, because Liv usually only gets defensive when she's feeling guilty. I pushed a bit more, asking her to just be honest, but she kept deflecting, getting more defensive with every question I asked. There was a bit of gaslighting thrown in too, making it seem like I was the one overreacting. I finally reached my limit and told her, "Either tell me what's going on, or I'll confront Ian, and you know he won't lie." That's when Liv finally confessed that she and Ian had been involved in a sexual relationship in the past. I was stunned and asked why she'd lied when I'd asked her before. She tried to justify it, saying, "I didn't lie. We never dated. It was just a friends with benefits thing right before you and I got serious." I couldn't believe it. "So you were sleeping with him when we first started dating?" I snapped. She snapped right back, "You don't have to be so vulgar. I don't want to talk about this right now. Can't we deal with this after the trip?" But I wasn't having it. "Absolutely not. You either come clean now, or I start asking your friends." I think she saw that I wasn't bluffing, and all of a sudden, the truth just started pouring out. Some of it I already knew. Liv's had a history of bad relationships, jumping into bed too quickly without really getting to know the person first. When we started dating, she asked if we could take things slow, and I was all for it. I was looking for someone special too, and Liv seemed like she could be that person. She even told me early on that I was free to see other people until we were official, but I said no. I'm not the type to date around, and I wanted to focus on one relationship at a time. She seemed genuinely happy when I told her that. But what she revealed next completely blindsided me. Liv told me about something that could shake our entire friend group if it ever got out. Apparently, Liv, Kate, Miranda, and Sarah had all had friends with benefits arrangements with Ian while they were dating their now husbands. Shortly after college, Kate, who's now married to Dom, was fed up with dating the wrong guys. During that time, she and Ian became FWB. When Kate met Dom, she told Ian she wanted to take things slow with him, to get to know him emotionally before getting physical. She said she was able to do this because she was still sleeping with Ian to satisfy her physical needs, which allowed her to focus on the emotional connection with Dom. Ian was fine with this arrangement and made it clear that he was just helping her find her special someone. They'd talk about Dom, and then they'd hook up. Once Kate felt confident Dom was the one, she ended things with Ian and fully committed to Dom. They later got married. Kate shared this setup with the other women, and over the years, they all ended up using Ian as their surrogate while dating their future husbands. And I'm apparently just the most recent guy in this whole twisted scenario. I asked Liv to explain how this played out in her case. I didn't care about the other women's stories. I needed to know about ours. Liv said after her last boyfriend turned out to be a narcissistic nightmare, she was done with dating the wrong guys and wanted to find a good guy, someone like me, I guess. So she approached Ian, asking if he'd help her out like he did for the others. Ian, being his free-spirited self, agreed. He genuinely believes he's just helping people find love, and honestly, he's always been a kind, supportive guy. I've had deep talks with him. We've played golf together. He's been a fixture in my life ever since I started dating Liv. I just never realized how involved he really was. Liv explained that Ian was there to listen, give advice, help her sort through her feelings, and yes, sleep with her so she could hold out with me until she felt we'd really gotten to know each other. Hearing this made me feel sick. I felt like my entire relationship with Liv was a lie, but I still kept pushing for more answers, needing to understand it all. I asked her when she stopped sleeping with Ian. She said, "When we went official." I told her, "I thought we were official when we agreed to date. So what did that mean for you?" She replied, "Dating doesn't make us a couple. We became official the night I asked you to commit, and we slept together for the first time. Ian and I have been just friends since that night." I couldn't believe it. "So you were with him for 7 months. You slept with him the whole time we were dating?" She got quiet, and I knew the answer. I said, "So let me get this straight. I'd pick you up for a date, we'd go out, have a great time, hold hands, kiss, and then I'd drop you off so you could meet up with Ian, sleep together, and talk about how great I am?" She snapped, "Don't make it sound so dirty." I was stunned and furious. I wanted to just walk away, but we're literally in the middle of nowhere, and my only option is to keep moving forward. Even though I should have just ended the conversation there, I kept digging. I asked her, "When you say you slept together, do you mean just basic stuff? Or did you do everything we do, foreplay, positions, kinky stuff, all of it?" She went quiet again. I told her, "You need to answer me. I'm going to find out, whether it's from you or one of them." I motioned toward the door, leading to the others' rooms. She finally whispered, "All of it. Even more than with you." The room was spinning, but I couldn't stop myself from asking the last painful question. When was the last time? She answered, "The night before our first time." I've never wanted to get away from someone more than I did at that moment, but instead, I just sat there, defeated. Liv tried to comfort me, but I pushed her away, telling her I needed space. I ended up crashing on the floor at the foot of the bed with a pile of blankets and pillows, feeling more trapped than ever. I got a few hours of restless sleep, but woke up still feeling sick to my stomach. Now here I am, sharing this update because I don't know what else to do. I want to walk out of here, but at the end of this trail is a 12-passenger van that I don't have the keys for. I'm stuck with these people for another 2.5 days of hiking, plus a long drive home, and I have no idea how I'm going to make it through. I'm feeling completely lost. Part of me understands the twisted logic behind what Liv and her friends did, but mostly I'm just devastated. It feels like our entire relationship has been one long con, like I was the second choice, the runner-up, the silver medal. I've got this overwhelming urge to expose everything in front of everyone because it's not just me. All these other guys are in the same boat. We're all here under false pretenses, and it's eating away at me. I don't know what to do next. I've got about an hour before everyone else wakes up, and I'm dreading facing Ian and Liv. Am I overreacting? Is this marriage even worth trying to save? I just don't see how we can come back from this. Now I'm back home, finally in the comfort of my own space. But it's looking like some of us, maybe even me, are staring down the road to divorce. Day 6 was a struggle, but I managed to keep it together. I'm sure everyone noticed something was off with me. I was unusually quiet, keeping to myself, and trying to push the pace to get back to the van as fast as possible. Around lunchtime, I'm pretty sure Liv pulled Ian aside and clued him in on what I knew. After that, Ian started trying to buddy up to me, attempting to talk, but I kept telling him to back off. He kept pushing until I finally lost my cool and snapped at him to drop it, making it very clear I wasn't in the mood. Liv stepped in after that, and they both seemed to understand I needed more time to process everything. The next 24 hours went by relatively smoothly. Everyone just sort of left me alone, giving me the space I needed. But after our little blow-up, Ian's demeanor shifted completely. He wasn't his usual laid-back self anymore. Instead, he was acting standoffish, occasionally throwing out passive-aggressive comments aimed in my direction. Nothing too obvious, but definitely enough for me to notice. By the time we set up camp on the 7th night, I had managed to relax a bit and was starting to be more social. We were gathered around the campfire, cooking up the last of our food, sharing stories, and just hanging out. Billy was telling this long, embarrassing story about something stupid he did back in high school, something about his first girlfriend and a hilarious screw-up. When he finished, he laughed it off, saying, "I can't believe I was ever that dumb. I still cringe thinking about it." Then Ian, out of nowhere, chimed in with, "Well, at least you grew up." Some people never man up and get over the past, and he shot me the most condescending look I've ever seen. In that moment, something snapped in me. It was like an out-of-body experience. I saw red, and all my restraint vanished. "You know what, Ian? You're right. Sometimes you do have to man up and face the past," I said, ignoring Liv as she tried to interject. "How about we address the fact that you used to sleep with all of our wives while we were dating them?" The campfire went dead quiet. Even the bugs seemed to hush up. "Oh, you guys didn't know? Yeah, while our future wives were taking things slow to build a connection with us, they were hooking up with Ian here, using him as their personal toy." Dom and Billy looked stunned and angry, while Sean had this look like he'd just caught his grandma doing something unspeakable. I wasn't done yet. I turned to Dom and said, Kate was the brains behind this genius plan. She figured the key to a lasting relationship was taking it slow emotionally while keeping her physical needs met on the side. All you need is a best friend willing to scratch that itch after you get all worked up from a date. Dom was furious. What the hell, Eli? How do you even know all this? I just smirked. I found out 2 days ago that when I'd take Liv out for drinks, those weren't the only shots she'd be taking that night. Liv lost it then, screaming at me, "Why are you doing this? You don't need to." But she was cut off when Sean suddenly spoke up. "It's true. It's all true." Everyone turned to him, stunned. "I've known since Sarah and I were dating. I didn't realize it was all of you guys until after we got married. I'm sorry, Eli. I should have warned you. Billy, I didn't know it was you back then either." Billy's face dropped. "Sean, we used to double date with Miranda and Sarah. Sometimes we'd drop them off at Ian's place after. Does that mean—" Sean just nodded, and the realization hit Billy like a ton of bricks. I turned back to Ian, unable to resist a jab. "Two at once, huh? You really are a dog." I let out a howl like a wolf, a stupid move in hindsight, but at the time, I thought it was hilarious. The camp was a mess of arguments, everyone yelling at their partners, when suddenly there was this audible gasp and whimper that drew everyone's attention. Odie was sitting there, tears streaming down his face. He looked at Ian and said, "Lies. More lies. It never stops. No matter how much I forgive you, no matter how many times I take you back, you always do this." He slapped Ian across the face, then stormed off down the trail. Ian chased after him, but it was chaos after that. The other 3 couples split up, arguing amongst themselves, each heading in a different direction. I stood there by the fire, feeling a strange sense of triumph. Liv walked up to me, her face full of anger and disappointment. "I hope you're happy," she said bitterly. I looked her dead in the eye and replied, "I've never been more fucking happy with myself. I'm 80-20 on divorcing you right now, so I suggest you leave me alone until we're home, unpacked, showered, and fed, because all you're gonna do is push me to 100. She didn't say another word, just turned and went into our tent. The next day was one of the most painfully awkward days I've ever experienced. Packing up camp in the morning, hiking back to the van, loading everything up, and then the 4.5-hour drive home, all of it in almost complete silence. I think maybe 19 words were spoken between all of us the entire time. Now, I'm sitting in my bathroom, freshly showered, feeling completely drained. I'm about to go eat some chicken nuggets, drink 3 Dr. Peppers, and then have a talk with my wife. I don't know what's going to happen next, not just for us, but for everyone else involved too. All I know is that whatever happens, it's not going to be pretty. It's been 4 weeks since we got back from the trip, and honestly, everything feels like it's imploding everywhere. Dom and Kate are getting a divorce. They've been together the longest out of all of us, with a 10-year-old son in the mix, and Dom's taking it really hard. He had the longest courting period, 9 months, before they became intimate. Now that he knows the truth, it's eating him alive because he remembers how they didn't get physical until he started questioning if he wanted to keep pursuing the relationship. Knowing what he knows now, no matter what Kate says, he's convinced that the reason she held off for so long was because she didn't want to stop being with Ian. I caught up with Sean one night over a few beers. We've always been pretty good friends, even if we only met through our wives. Sean explained that Sarah had been upfront with him when they started dating. She told him she wanted to wait at least 3 months before having sex, but also let him know she'd still be meeting up with her FWB, Ian. Sean really liked Sarah but was honest that he was only casually dating until he felt certain about someone, and Sarah was fine with that. So, unlike the rest of us who were left in the dark, Sean knew what was going on and even had his own thing going during that time. About 2 weeks before the 3 months were up, after a few double dates with Billy and Miranda, Sean realized he was falling hard for Sarah. He told her he wanted to be exclusive, and Sarah immediately scrapped her 3-month rule. They slept together that very night and have been solid ever since. They were completely honest with each other about their pasts right away, and that openness seems to have helped them weather the storm. They did have a small argument about the whole campfire fiasco, because Sarah felt they should have just stayed out of it altogether, but they've mostly moved past it and are doing well as a couple. Thanks to Sean, I've also got an update on Billy and Miranda. They're trying to reconcile, but it's not easy. Billy feels like she cheated and is using technicalities to justify it, saying they dated for 6 months before becoming official. They've got 3 kids under 7, and they're both trying to make it work for the kids' sake, but Billy's struggling. He distinctly remembers dropping off Miranda and Sarah at Ian's on 2 different occasions, and knowing that Miranda went out with him while having a threesome planned has shattered him. Miranda insists that only one of those times did anything happen, and it wasn't a true threesome, more like a reverse train, whatever that means. Sarah confirmed the details, saying it wasn't a real 3-way, but honestly, does that make it any better? Ian tried reaching out to me to apologize, but I told him to go fuck himself, and then blocked him. Odie reached out too, and we ended up talking a lot over the next week, which was unexpected since we were only really friendly acquaintances before. Odie told me that my outburst at the campfire was the last straw for him. He and Ian have been on again, off again for 15 years. While Ian puts on this chill, selfless image, Odie says he's actually very self-centered and manipulative. Ian would often break up with him or declare they were on a break, so he could sleep around guilt-free, insisting he wasn't cheating. He'd always crawl back once he'd had his fun. Looking back, Odie realizes that at least 2 of these breaks coincided with these dating setups that Ian had going with our wives. Odie feels the worst about tolerating Ian's behavior for so long, constantly giving him another chance. But he says he's done for good this time. He's moving back to Santa Barbara and leaving Ian and the cold Midwest behind. As for me and Liv, we had the longest conversation we've ever had the night we got home, even though we were both exhausted. I told her right from the start that I didn't want to argue, debate, or anything like that. I wanted her to tell me everything she felt she needed to say without interruptions, and then I'd do the same. She agreed. Liv's side was a lot of apologies mixed with justifications. She would admit she was wrong, but then immediately follow up with why it was okay or how it led to some positive outcome. She did say she was really hurt by how I blew up at the campsite, but she acknowledged that Ian deserved just as much blame for pushing my buttons. When she finished, she asked if I had any questions, and I told her no. Now, I'm just left here, trying to figure out where we go from here. I don't know if this is something we can get past, or if it's the beginning of the end. I'm not sure if there's even a path forward, but I do know one thing. Things will never be the same. I started my side of the conversation by laying it all out. I told Liv that our entire relationship felt like it was built on lies, on false pretenses. I acknowledged that, logically, I could understand why she did what she did, the Ian FWB arrangement. After all, her 3 best friends did the same thing and ended up with great husbands, so I could see how she might have thought it was just part of finding the one. But deep down, all 4 of them had to know it was wrong to start a relationship this way. I told her it was incredibly hurtful to know she was sleeping with someone else during the early stages of our relationship. I felt like it held back the natural progression of us, and now it's fundamentally changed how I see the beginning of our time together. I looked at her and said, "Do you remember about 4, maybe 4.5 months into our relationship? We had that amazing day? We spent the whole day together, and it ended with us back on my couch. We were kissing, your shirt was off, I was touching you over your shorts. It was getting pretty intense. And then you stopped. You apologized and said you really wanted to, but you weren't quite ready yet. You told me you wanted to be 100% sure. I told you it was okay, reassured you, and you looked at me with so much love before giving me a passionate kiss and leaving. And now I can only guess that you left my place and went straight to Ian's. Liv sat there, tears streaming down her face. I asked her, "Am I right?" She just nodded, and it felt like my worst fears were confirmed. I continued, "I put my energy into you, gave you everything I had, and you chose not to return that to me. You gave it to someone else instead. Maybe I could have moved past it if this thing with him had ended early on, in the first month or two when we were still casual. But by that point, we were spending so much time together, and you kept it up with him right until the day before we finally got together. You liked having both of us, and you found ways to justify it to yourself." I told her, "But the worst part of all this, the part you might not even realize, is finding out that you were more adventurous, more exciting with him. It's like a knife in the heart. It makes me feel like second best, like I was your backup plan, your safe bet, that I was just good enough." She cut in, trying to tell me that it wasn't like that she loved me, and that what she had with Ian was just meaningless sex. She said it wasn't real, that when you don't care about someone, it's easier to be wild and uninhibited. I let her finish, and then calmly reminded her, "Remember, we agreed it was my turn to talk." I went on, "I get that's how you see it, but it's not how I see it. As your husband, I've always felt it was my responsibility to give you my best emotional energy, physical energy, mental energy, sexual energy. I've given you all of that over the past 8 years. But now, knowing what I know, I realize I haven't always received your best in return. And as a man, I have to be honest. Your sexual energy is incredibly important to me. To know that you didn't trust me with all of it, that I wasn't worthy of it, is something I can't overlook. I don't think I can come back from this, and I intend to file for divorce." Things got messy from there. She broke down, crying heavily, pleading with me not to do this. She offered herself to me, begging to start over, to try and rebuild what we had. I couldn't handle it, so I walked away. Later, she suggested that we were just both too emotional right now, and that I needed to take some time to think things over. That did give me pause, and we agreed to take 3 weeks to cool down and reassess. It's been 4 weeks now, and my feelings haven't changed. We met with a mutual divorce lawyer who's helping us both through the process. Thankfully, there are no kids involved, and we've decided to sell the house, so the initial meeting went smoothly. But it's been incredibly hard on both of us. Liv is deeply depressed, and so am I. As much as it hurts, I know this is the right decision. Sometimes, no matter how much you want something to work, it just doesn't.